What we need to do now is add in a zone as well, because we want to tell VisionSuite what areas are we actually interested in for the audience pickup, for the speaker spotlight feature. You can get very specific with this. You can have lots of little zones, but actually most rooms you can be quite happy with just one or two quite big zones. And you just basically say, hey, if anyone's speaking here, we want this to happen with the cameras. We're going to come over to the speaker zones section on the left here. Let's go and add a speaker zone here. And when you do that, you can see down here at the origin, it's added in a speaker zone. Have you got that as well? Yeah. What color is your speaker zone?
Mine's like a teal color.
Nice. They're kind of random in color. That might not be the case depending on when you're doing this training, but right now it's quite fun. We're going to have like rainbow colored speaker zones. All we need to do with this is really say where we want to be interested in people speaking. You could just cover the entire room with one zone. That would be completely fine. But for example, in this room, we're probably not going to treat people speaking at the front of the room, speaking at the table. We're probably not going to treat them the same as people sat at the table. So for now, we're just going to worry about the table. So you can grab the corners of this, and just like we resized the room, you can resize this zone. You can also select it and turn on Move Entire Zone. And then it has arrows just like anything else. So you can move it, for example, like this. So it's all a bit further down. Then turn Move Entire Zone off. And then we could make some adjustments here. And I think what we want to go for here, Adam, is a little bit bigger than the table. Mm-hmm. Can you see why we'd want to not just be super close to the table?
Just in case, like someone's leaning back in their chair, perhaps, or someone's stood. Perhaps it's a bit like our boardroom. It gets a bit busy, and we have to have people kind of stood around the edge. Yeah, exactly. So it might be that you actually just want to cover the entire room from the table onwards. In which case, you could resize this to, be like this, right? You could say, hey, it's just the whole room. Or you might say, no, I'm really only interested in people around the table. If someone's right at the back of the room, standing next to the wall, we can forget about them. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? One big speaker zone. So let's just recap what we've done so far. We've got our camera, we've got our microphone, we've got our speaker zone. Now, there's one last thing we need to do before we can link all of that together, and that is to also define what kind of camera shots we actually want to get. Now, that's going to be done on the camera, of course. So just go ahead and select your camera. And this is where we're going to look at a section that we saw earlier, the containers section. Let's click on containers here. Now, a container is just really a collection of camera parameters. Now, we've got two types, and you can see that here. Depending on how you've resized this side panel, that might appear differently. So you can make this side panel a bit bigger, and then the controls here are going to expand a little bit. So right now I can see containers, shot, and position. A position container, it's just a fixed position. And you might want that. For example, if nobody is speaking, you might want to go to a sort of home position that is just front and center, zoomed all the way out, for example. When people are speaking, we don't want to have presets. We just want to have a type of shot, and then we can recall that. Doesn't matter where people are sitting. So we're going to do that now. Just go ahead and press plus shot or add shot. And you're going to see it makes a new container with a picture of a person, and it says shot. When we recall that, it is going to frame the person in question in that way as best as it can. Right, so we've got their head right in the middle, and we can kind of see their torso as well. Now, the cool thing is that you can change this. So we can right click on that, we can press edit, and now we've got a bunch of customization options. And I really want you as a designer to actually think about this. It might be that you've got a use case where you want it to be quite a wide shot. You want to see more of the people around the person. Or it might be that you want it to be a really tight close-up. This is where the relative size slider here is important. So as you adjust this, rather than you controlling the zoom on the camera, you're just saying, hey, this is how big
I want my person to look. So if they're further away, it's going to zoom in more. If they're closer, it's going to zoom in less. It's all going to figure that out for you. What I would recommend personally is that we don't do really tightly zoomed in ones. It's just because I think it's a bit of a better experience actually if you can see other people around the person. It's also going to mean it's a bit easier to recall consistently because it hasn't got to zoom in quite so far. It hasn't got to have quite so much confidence about the exact position of the person just based on the mic data. You've almost got a bit of extra padding here. Okay, you can also click on the person, drag them around. You could say that their head should be up there for some reason. But you know what I'm going to come back to here. The default one is actually pretty good. Default one is probably what you want, but you can come in here and edit it if you like. We've got the microphone, we've got the camera, we've told the camera the kind of shot we want it to do. The other thing we want to do is add in a position container so that when no one is speaking, we can just go home, we can see the whole room. For now, just click add position and it's going to add a position container, which is just called position. So let's right click that and edit that. And let's just call this home. We can't really edit position containers with accuracy in emulation mode. That's something that they can do when they install the system. But having a position container called home, and we're going to link this into our config here, is going to show people what we want the system to do. So call it home and just hit save. And now I think it's time for us to create our config that tells the system what to do. So for that, we're actually going to expand this top section again. We've got the floor, we've got the room, and now inside the room, we've got our config. By clicking on the config here, you can see on the right-hand side, we've got camera roles, presenter logic, and we've also got speaker logic. And for now, we're interested in speaker logic. And that means how do people in speaker zones affect what the system is going to do. Now, before we can edit this, we also need to just add ourselves a VisionSuite accelerator in the inventory. That is where all this is going to live. It's not going to let us make a config without having a VisionSuite accelerator. It doesn't really matter what it's called for now, but let's just call it like VSA. And now back in our config, what we're going to do is expand our speaker logic section. And it says there, no speaker rules. Okay, we want to make two rules. We want to make one for when people are speaking and one for when they're not. So let's start by creating a rule for when people are speaking. Click the plus button and we can rename this to something like table talking. Doesn't really matter what you call it as long as it's something descriptive and meaningful. And then let's expand that rule, and we're going to see that it's really intuitive to actually describe what the rule is doing because it's laid out kind of like a sentence. So let's start from the top. It says if one person speaks, and there's a few options there we can change, but that's the one we want right now. In select a trigger zone, so we can select speaker zone 1, which is the trigger zone we made earlier, and the same person keeps speaking for 2 seconds, that's called the hold time. Then on this camera, recall this shot. So here we can select our camera and the shot container that we made earlier. There's also a little tick box at the bottom for switch camera. We've only got one camera right now, but I like to keep that ticked because normally I want to switch to a camera after the shot has been recalled. So let's make sure that rule is turned on, and now we're going to make another one for when nobody is talking. So let's just minimize the rule we made, and we'll hit the plus button again to add another speaker logic rule. And this one, let's rename it to something like silence, because this is the rule that's going to fire when there's no one talking in the room. So for this rule, we're going to change that first drop down, and you can see that as well as one person speaking, you've got options for multiple people speaking, no one speaking, the far end speaking. We're going to choose nobody speaks in any zone. There's another hold time setting depending on how long you want the room to be silent for, and then again you choose the camera you want and the container you want to load, and this time we're going to load the home container because we want the camera to go to a home shot when there's nobody speaking. So now you've made the room, you've got the config, let's see how that looks in real life, and then we'll come back and we'll see if there's other stuff that we want to add.
Yes, let's do that. So here we are in the boardroom with our single camera system that we've just
programmed here. I'm joined here by Jack, who's helped out with a bit of the programming for this. Jack, we're going to be seeing quite a lot of camera movement in this, so can you turn on the field of view option for the cameras?
Yeah, 100%. To do that, what we're going to do, over here in inventory, I'm just going to select the camera that I want. And then down here on the right-hand side, right at the bottom, we're going to see the field of view option. And that should be on for you now.
Yeah, very, very good. Let me just try that. So I'll speak again. We'll see the camera move. And of course, in the UI as well, yeah, we see that field of view widening. Now, can you give us a bit more info? Because so far, we've mostly been seeing this emulation mode. Now we're seeing it on a running system. What is some of the stuff in the UI? What's this dot that we're seeing appear?
Yeah, so those dots, they're actually really important. That's going to be our speaker detection. That's going to kind of be our audio detection for the space. So as I start speaking from kind of a certain place within the room, the audio is going to pick me up, and that's going to kind of know exactly where I am with Inside Designer.
Yeah, lovely. And it's worth pointing out that in this setup right now, we haven't got any computer vision going on. So these detections are purely based off of audio data from that single microphone. But that might not always be the case, right?
Yeah, 100%. So in bigger spaces, more complex rooms, and typically you might see kind of a vision-based camera. And that vision-based camera, it's going to allow us to kind of do vision-based detections and audio-based detections, combine them together. In that type of environment, you're always going to see these orbs appear, but a yellow ring is going to appear around them when somebody's speaking.
That's right. And just for a point of comparison, I'll bring the camera over to me right now so you can see that we get a shot from this side of the room as well.
Yeah, but it is actually worth reminding everybody here that these shots are being created on the fly. So we do have some options if I want to change what I'm seeing. So I'm just going to go down to my rules and actually kind of take a look at my speaker shot. Let's maybe move it to something a little bit more zoomed out.
Great, and let me just try that as well. So I'll speak over here, bring that camera over to me, and now, yeah, you've got quite a wide shot from where I'm speaking here. So this is the cool thing. You might want to have a much wider shot to give you more context of what's around people. You might want a zoomed in head and shoulders shot like we saw earlier. It's really up to you and the customer, you know, what you actually want to deliver there, okay?
But quickly, James, there is only one camera in this system. It's probably the simplest thing we could have deployed with VisionSuite. Is there maybe an option for something a bit more sophisticated?
Well, yeah. So one camera seems to work really, really nicely. We get great shots. We get nice camera movement, very smooth, very cinematic. But actually, we might want to have in a larger system, no camera movement visible ever, just nice quick cuts, okay? And I'll show you how to do that with primary and secondary cameras in the next video. See you there.